really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess, screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown! I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it! Hits it!
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, it's funny. Last night, I was thinking about this. A year ago, if you remember, we were going through, I guess I called it back then, euphoria. The thrill of watching this Pacer team perform at a level that we have not seen in a long time. And I know because we live in a world. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. I was talking about instant gratification. And believe me, I'm right there with you. You want it, and you want it right now. Actually, now, you no longer want it right now. You want it yesterday. You want the recognition yesterday. And the thing about the Pacers is, if you remember as Pacer fans a year ago, we were just 6 months removed with this team from me getting sick and tired of hearing about how that was an entertaining loss. Remember entertaining losses? Remember that nerdery? And I absolutely hated every second of it. So it stands to reason that once you start winning games, you start feeling better about yourself, that all of a sudden now, hey, we want that respect. But it's not so easily given. You got to earn it. The Pacers, in fact, are still earning it, would we not say? They're still earning it in terms of this. We're approaching, a week from today, the NBA trade deadline, and there are a zillion NBA beat-writing knuckleheads out there in social media that suggest that the Pacers are going to trade Miles Turner. And listen, I absolutely love Chad Buchanan, and I love talking to him, and we talk hoop all the time. And Kevin Pritchard has done a great job. But if they trade Miles, if they do any, I'm going to rip their ass like there's no tomorrow. And I like them. But they will be ripped. And I feel solid in suggesting that it's because there's no way they're going to do that. This is something that if you're a good organization, you will figure out. And I know that those are relative terms, but this is something that you'll figure out. And that comes with understanding. And the understanding is you have seen this team and you know what this team does when it's at its best. And part of that revolution is in and around number 33. And you have no replacement. Remember, the deal that got Tyrese Halliburton here was with Sacramento, and they decided to go with De'Aaron Fox. They chose De'Aaron Fox over Tyrese Halliburton. And now De'Aaron Fox wants the hell out of Dodge. And they're going to trade De'Aaron Fox before next week, probably sooner rather than later. You got to understand your situation. And believe me, by now the Pacers understand their situation. But let's get back to the whole level of nobility of getting the respect that you're searching for. There is not enough evidence on the plate right now for everybody to come running with roses to Detroit because we're less than a year away from these guys losing like 28 consecutive. Again, the Pacers are still in an earning process because every jackass out there on the internet wants the big team, the big market team like the Lakers to swoop in and here's a couple of jockstrap holders and the towel guy for Miles Turner. That's what you get. If you've seen all these beyond stupid-ass deals out there, they all revolve around the Pacers. They all revolve around the smaller market team. James, that's frozen out there. I look really good right there, but I am frozen like I'm in Antarctica right up there. Thank you, brother. But it has the Pacers getting jack squat. Now, I want to say something different, but I can't. One of these days, maybe I will be able to. One of these days, I think terrestrial radio is going to need the outlet of really, truly speaking our mind. But until that point in time, I have to work within the parameters. So jack squat it is. Yeah, the Pacers, the small market team, they get jack squat. Meanwhile, the Lakers are going to get Miles Turner. Here's a couple of towels. You know, and this is L.A., Southern California. This is Hollywood. It used to be Showtime. I mean, you ought to be begging even to be in a deal with Rob. I look like Rob Lowe Palenka. No, this is not how it works. This is, and this team, this organization is in a competitive atmosphere, and that's not the path in which you go down. That's not how it's going to work. When people ask me this all the time, so why are you so sold on this? Because this Pacer team's not going to win a title this year. What is wrong with you? When's the last time that they won a title? When was that? So what you look at right now is the growth of a team that is much better off with its pieces. And I'm sorry, if you have a team, organizationally speaking, you don't trade away significant pieces until you have a replacement for those pieces. And I love Thomas Bryant and his implementation into this team and what he has brought off the bench. But as they say where I am from, he ain't it as a starter. And that's no disrespect intended whatsoever. I know that sounds like jackassery, but no disrespect whatsoever. But they're as good as the sum of their parts. We have seen that. You let it grow. All I ever heard last year at this time, remember, everybody was so scared. I'm so scared. I'm scared of trading for Pascal Siakam. He's old, and the timeline, all these nerds with their timelines not matching. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot. He's a really good basketball player. He offers you something you don't have. A consistent, and I mean as inconsistent as in, hell, to me, 70+% scoring and getting to in the paint where he wants to go. And, you know, I've had all these jackasses say, well, Miles, he needs to get inside. You already got a guy that's inside. He works on the inside. The NBA in this era, you don't need more than one. The true value in a big, it's great if you can score. Well, like Wembanyama, for example, can do whatever he wants and will be able to one of these days if somebody doesn't break him in half. But he'll be able to do whatever he wants inside and outside. But until further notice, when you have a big guy, like that's the difference between having Miles and Kevin Looney. Who would you rather have? Hey, Kevin Looney's a real low-post threat. Great, let's take him. Yeah, okay. Who do you think the Warriors at this point would rather have? So stop at the low-post threat. They have one. They have one that's in the top 7 of NBA players in low-post presence and low-post touches. That's enough. And for those that were scared about what he represented being over 30 and not matching anybody's timeline, he is a professional basketball player / scorer. And that's what you got to witness last night. They have inside, they have outside threats. And this is a team that is still growing. I said this all along. The reason why the term is so dirty around here, run it back, it's because the Colts have sucked at it so bad. Because that's what they do, and then you see the outcome of it's, all right, nothing. So that's made the term around here dirty, but it's not when you have your blank together. And the Pacers have their blank together. Then zero question about it. So getting back to the Pistons and the Pacers from last night, where I originally was going to go with my thought, is I like some of the Pistons players. Like, I don't know about anybody else. I like Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham is going to work. Oh, he's already working over people. He's really going to work over people when he gets even better and gets more time. I like Cade Cunningham a great deal. And I watch basketball all the time, and I even watch the Pistons, and I watched them last year. You know, they're working without Jaden Ivey. I know last night the Pacers without Matherin and without Nembhard, but obviously Ivey's done for the season. He's another important piece. And I've said this before about J.B. Bickerstaff. I think initially he is good for a team. It's like Tom Thibodeau. Initially he's going to be good for a team, but like a lot of guys, they have a shelf life. They have an expiration date. And you watched this team work last night, and they call it, and their head coach calls it in search for respectability. They want respect. Pacers talk too much junk when they win. Well, I got news for you, too. Everybody talks junk when they win. Nobody talks junk when they lose because that makes you a loser. You're a loser. I'm going to talk junk when I get beat by 20. That's not how it works. If you play games out there, you know you don't talk junk. You're a huge horse's ass if you talk junk when you lose. Of course, teams are going to talk about it when they win. Don't we love trash talking? Now, you don't love trash talking when you score 1 point and you go down on the floor and you flip off the crowd and you act like you're shooting the bench like Beef Stew, who's an idiot. That was his sole purpose. I had said the week leading up to that Isaiah Stewart probably was sleeping under the porch. And there is no porch, but sleeping under the porch at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, that looked like a guy last night that had been sleeping under the porch at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Seriously, it looked like stinking Cape. He came out like De Niro and Cape Fear last night. He was only there to be a horse's ass, and that was it. He wasn't there to play, wasn't there to rebound, wasn't there to score. He was there to be an agitator. He was like Woody Woodpecker without a jump shot. That's the only reason why he was there. That's it. That was his sole purpose. And you saw that. There was no respect in that game. There's going to be respect when you continue to do it because I think that they're talented and one of these days they're going to be good. But again, they're still searching in Detroit with their team and their head coach what the Pacers are still searching for right now. They should not get, even though they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, their resume, it's much more glittery because of that. But still, they are a work in progress. It's just not like that you flip the switch and all of a sudden you get respect. It's not like that in really any job field. How many of you first started gigs? I tell people around this all the time. People say, all right, so how do I get into this and how do I sustain? And I said, what you do is you do absolutely everything you're asked, and then you go above everything you're asked. You do as much as you can. You never say no. No half-assing going on. We could tape stuff, and I could lean back and take a nap. I could run Saturday night with voice track and half-ass that. I choose not to because that's not the formula, and that's not how I was taught. But we all have to work to reach a level of respectability in whatever we do, and that includes the NBA level. And I know that there may be some exceptions to the rule. A lot of you are probably going to say, well, what about, Bronny James? Well, I think we have seen with J.J. Redick and what he has said about that, what he has said most recently, that's going to come to a screeching halt here soon. There are going to be exceptions to that rule. But in this case, the Pistons are not one. They're going to be good one of these days, and it may be sooner rather than later. They may be a surprise team, tail end of the playoffs. You get in with the play-in, and then you wreck a little bit of shop by virtue of that. We've seen Miami do it before. I'm not suggesting that J.B. Bickerstaff's as good as Eric Spoelstra or this team is going to be as good as those Miami teams we have seen perform in that fashion, but I think the possibility is there because they do have talent. I'd said this last night. You watch their coach on the sideline, they act exactly like their coach. And then I think a couple of Detroit fans swooped in and said, hey, you're stupid for what you say. I'm not a Pistons fan, which normally means they're a Pistons fan. I'm not a Pistons fan, but what you said is stupid. Now, what I'm saying is not stupid. J.B. Bickerstaff, he complains the entire game. he pisses and moans and cries and whines for calls the entire game. The reason why his team acts like that is because that's how he acts on the sideline. He sets the precedent. That's something that one of these days will have to change. And listen, I don't have enough. I know it's easy to say he was in Cleveland last year, and now look at Cleveland this year. I'm not going to make it that easy. I'm going to give him more respect than probably he deserves after last night, but he's full of crap. And I know you have to back up your guys, but the way he acts on the sideline is exactly the way that his team acts on the floor. And at some point, they're all going to have to grow up because that respect is not coming tomorrow or next week. That respect is earned with production, with winning, and more than what you've done. I'm certain they would understand that right now. But that's what was happening last night. One team showed up and knew that the other team had him, I guess, literally here in the crosshairs with that idiot. And the other team showed up to be an agitator. And we saw how that went down. So that's not how you gain respect. We can hit that at 239-1070 if you so desire. Email address is jmv1075thefan.com. Dustin Dopirak's going to join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Heavy discussion on that, too. We've got more regarding IU and Purdue coming up tomorrow night. The Fifeinator is going to join us. Dane Fife. I actually texted him earlier this morning. I said, hey, Fife, it's about time you come back on the show. Actually, I presented him an option, and I was surprised he decided on the latter. I said, hey, you can join us tomorrow at the legendary Workingman's Friend, and then by the time you come on the air, we'll get you all lubed up. By the time you get on the air, it'll really be good. But he declined that. He's going to join us at 5:30 coming up later on today. We got a weekend off in really the Super Bowl week this week. It's kind of weird, right? I wonder if everybody, I mentioned this to James, everybody says right now, I'm not watching, I'm not going to pay attention, this whole thing sucks. There's no way you're going to do that. You are going to watch, you're going to pay attention. Now, you're going to tell everybody you're not, but that's what you're going to do. That discussion is coming up, and Colts stuff with Mike Chappell coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour. So Dopirak, Chappell, and Fife all coming up a little bit later on today. You get IU Purdue coming up tomorrow night. Man, IU is in a bad, bad spot. No question about it. But again, a spot they've created on their own. But a bad spot nonetheless coming up tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. As I mentioned, too, Workingman's Friend, that is tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock. If I were you, I would get there early. And this reminder that it's cash only at Workingman's Friend off of Belmont. Or is it Warman or Belmont? I think I say Belmont all the time. Make sure it's Belmont. Sometimes I get Warman and Belmont, James, confused, and I don't want to confuse anybody. And I'm assuming that most people out there know what I'm talking about, know where it is. Yes.
It's on Belmont.
Belmont, everybody. Warman is where my good friend Elise Fields once upon a time lived. And her ADT was going off. This is a true story. About 20 years ago, ADT was going off. I came back from a vacation, and she was down in Greene County. She said, hey, can you go over to my house? Because my ADT, my security system's going off. I think something's malfunctioning. I said, sure as hell can. So I go to her house over there off Warman and go to the back door, and it's open, and 3 dudes come running out at me carrying a bunch of stuff. And I chased them away with, I blank you not on this, a garden hoe.
Really?
I had a truck, and I had a garden hoe in the back of a truck, and I said, hey, don't you be blanking with me. I got a garden hoe.
When you initially approached the door, did you already have the garden hoe in hand? Or did
no,
you
I had
have
to run back to the truck and get it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that kind of diffused the situation a little bit. Don't blank with me. I've got a garden hoe. But 3 dudes came running out of there, carrying like armloads of stuff, and they dropped a bunch of jewelry and such. And I don't even know if it was worth anything. 3 dudes were in there, though. I always told the story. You guys, we all, especially when we get older, like I'm 55 years old, and I'm sure that my stories are more embellished by the minute. But I always tell, like, these guys are clearly worried about getting their ass whipped when I rolled up there. They probably weren't.
Does the number of guys leaving the door increase with each passing year?
No, there was 3.
It's always been 3?
Three dudes. 3 dudes came darting out of the back door that was open at the time. I think they'd see me. I was at the front porch going, hey, knocking. I don't know why I was knocking because nobody was home. And I go to the back door, and they came running out.
So, yeah, best case scenario.
I went to the truck to grab the garden hoe.
Best case scenario, you're just letting everybody know that you're there.
And then I went over on Warman, if you guys know this, Warman, and right there, I think close to the intersection of Warman and Washington Street, there's a fire station. And I went over to the fire station. I said, hey, 3 dudes are in, and whatever. So I don't think they really got away with anything. So at least they didn't whip my ass. That's good, too.
Yeah, that's a bonus
that was
right
good.
there.
So, yeah. But now I tell the story like, these guys were all really scared. Look at them run. What are you guys doing running? This guy's got a garden hoe. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Dustin Dopirak's going to join us. Mike Chappell and Dane Fife all on the show. I'd love to see a Workingman's Friend coming up tomorrow. It is going to be an absolute blast. Let's all get our weekend started out the way that it should. And this reminder, our first tavern tour stop of 2025 at Workingman's Friend is cash required. Becky, I cannot wait to see you. Cash required at Workingman's Friend. The last time we were there, the place was absolutely packed. My plan is, I was thinking about going down to Bloomington and doing a little hoop tomorrow at a noon hyper, but I want to get there kind of early with everybody else. So I want to get there early with you tomorrow. Workingman's Friend Tavern Tour stop for January 2025. Me, Brent Halverson, and we have a ton of guests on the show coming up tomorrow. And hopefully we see you out there as well. Get that weekend started out with an absolute blast. All right, tickets to give away at 239-1070. We've got Simple Minds, Soft Cell, and Modern English coming up in June at Ruoff Music Center. Got those tickets to give away and a busy schedule for you. Get back to the Pacers last night. Kind of lost in the whole shuffle of, hey, this is like Malice in the Palace part. No, it wasn't. It wasn't anything like that. Those were 2 really good teams. Now, we'll say this. Isaiah Stewart was very Artest-like back then with his actions. He was there for one thing. He was there to be an agitator and an instigator, and that was it. He was there to do nothing else. But it wasn't anything like 04 in November. Nothing like it. I mean, even if the forearm shove or shiver or whatever was very Ben Wallace-like, Ben Wallace would be capable of wrecking you, and Isaiah Stewart was just going to go out there and be a horse's ass. And that was it. So we're not in that category whatsoever. But the Pacers sustained. I think Miles did a little bit of trolling with the whole Darth Vader Lego thing, I think on social media too. Is there anybody out there that actually buys any at all of these whole Miles trade storylines? And if by now, let's just say, for example, if your mind hasn't changed by now, are you just really stupid? Is there a ledge we can talk you off of, a ledge of stupidity we can talk you off of? We'll get you at 239-1070 coming up on the other side. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live this time of year. Make sure AAA has your back. Become a AAA member today, and coming up in February, their travel expo with AAA. That's something else we got to have. We got to have a vacation travel expo in Carmel's coming up in February. I shall explain. Don't go anywhere. The stream, the app, HD Radio, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Guess not.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, I'm going to go see Yacht Rock Review, I think, tomorrow night. I'm going to try to work in between watching IU Purdue and hearing Yacht Rock Review cover What a Fool Believes down at the Brown County Music Center. I can't wait for it. Dan Pittman says, don't blank with me. I have a garden hoe is very different from I got a garden hoe. Thank you. BT Deuce says, quote, Isaiah Stewart is like the Woody Woodpecker without a jumper. It's kind of like a wordsmith there, JMV. Thank you. He was just there to do exactly what he did. That's all he was there to do. What do they say in Die Hard? A fly in the ointment, a monkey in the wrench. What he did last night, he accomplished exactly what he set out to accomplish. And listen, that Detroit team is not going to reach what they think if they don't stop acting like horses' asses. At some point, you got to get real with the craft. I mean, all this flexing and acting like you're tough. I got news for you. When you're good and you win, and then you can talk junk. That is the thrill in winning in competition. Then you can talk junk. But until that point in time, you can't say anything without looking stupid. And the stupidity is led by their head coach. See if you can find those comments after the game. I know that you got to pat your guys on the back and back up your guys, but his guys acting like that, they were costly last night. No other way to say it. Damon says this, JMV, the Pacers are 26-20, same as last year. 2024, after that, they went 8-8, finishing 13-7 after March 3rd. What is your prediction for the rest of the year? I've said this all along. I thought if they were able to, Damon, position themselves going into these next couple of games, and then you got a 4-gamer, you get Utah. Utah in the first of 4 on the road out west, I think is vital. I don't care who plays in Portland. Whoever is playing in Portland. The Pacers always lose in Portland. Can you look and see when the hell the last time the Pacers won in Portland? It seems like forever. Maybe I'm wrong. And while Portland is not any good this year, I watched Portland the other night. They had Milwaukee on the second of a back-to-back. And you could tell that, and you could tell Portland, obviously the return of Damian Lillard was a big deal for them right there too, but that Portland team was knocking down shots. Dudes knocking down shots that don't normally do that, and you'll probably get that in one of these road games, and I would expect maybe in Portland. Yes, James?
According to this, the Pacers' last win in Portland was January 14th of 2021.
2021. That seems a lot more recent than I would have thought. But, yeah, you take care of last night. You get Atlanta on Saturday late afternoon before the Royal Rumble. Then you got Utah, Portland, and back-to-back Lakers and Clippers. I hope, remember the last time they went out west? That was really when all of this goodwill started, this higher level of playing started. So it'd be great to see that again. Now, it's going to be easier said than done. But I thought last year that they were going to be capable, Damon, to answer your question, to kind of ramp up. And I thought we saw that. And certainly they got good fortune with injuries, but you can't help that. You're only playing who's on your schedule and what personnel is available when that team's on your schedule. But they can also ramp up with the end of the season schedule. And there is no better time to begin a winning streak in the regular season than the tail end of the season. Playing well at a high level, complimentary. God, I know they say that all the time, and it drives me nuts too. Hey, we're going to play complimentary football. You mean good? Just say good. We're going to play well all the way around. Complimentary football. You're not allowed to play. You're not allowed to use the term complimentary football when you rarely, if ever, play it. All right. I'm sorry. I know this always doubles back to when's the last time they played complimentary football all the way around? Come on. But I think the end of the year schedule will allow them to gain that momentum that we saw them gain, Damon, a year ago, too. Rex writes this: I thought you were going a different direction with the Warman story, like a Skinamax version. No. Yeah, it was 3 dudes in the house robbing it. When I walked in the back door, hey, everybody, how we doing? Jeremiah Wheatley chimes in. How ironic this garbage shows up on my other social media account while you're discussing it. This is from some jackassery called Basketball Legacy. Actually, this is 4 days ago. Yeah, this is the one. This is what I was talking about. NBA clowns that write about the NBA that, are caught kind of in between their afternoon ritual of making up crap and then some self-gratification. So these loners are at home either typing something out or rubbing something, right? So that's kind of how it goes. And you make up deals like this. And for the Pacers, they're always at they're at the ass end of these deals. So you tell me, Miles Turner for Rui Hachimura, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Cam Reddish, and a 2029 first-round pick. What kind of idiot, seriously, much less any level of organizational figurehead would look at that, and even if you're just not even a common passerby of the NBA, you look at that like that's one of the dumbest things ever cobbled together of all time. So the rubbing one was probably over the typing one at that point in time when this nerd put this together. Seriously. We're like, Jalen Hood-Schifino's done. Cam Reddish has never done anything. I've always liked Hachimura while it can. I mean, what does that do? The Pacers are not a farm system for the rest of the NBA. And I will tell everybody's ass that. I don't want to have to worry about timelines. I don't want to worry about, again, have to suffer through, again, these entertaining losses, all this nerdy bull crap that comes with you losing, with you being a losing franchise. So you can imagine. You imagine how stupid the person that put this together has to be? Seriously. The Pacers cannot, and this can go all the way up to Steven Simon. The Pacers cannot be a farm system. No. This is legitimate. Think about this. You think about what you're going to do organizationally with the NBA, and think about what you're going to be doing organizationally with the WNBA. I mean, like, Caitlin Clark landed in your you talk about being lucky. I'm not just talking about in terms of the WNBA, just in terms of being so incredibly fortunate. Yet all this is just coming together at the right time. You work it, you grow it. You know, they've had that thing, we grow basketball. This is growing basketball. And everybody made fun of it. Oh, we always have to be homegrown Hoosiers, farmers, and basketball. Remember, Dorks made fun of that. And that's fine, because I make fun of yes, sirs. I hate that. But we grow back. This is growing. What you're going through right now is growing basketball. This is what it is on both sides. And you never really know when you're going to get that kiss. And obviously, the WNBA program got to kiss with Caitlin Clark, which is great, and that's great for everybody, all of it. Because now the cash register is going to be clicking, coming up in times during the year when it never has before. And this is when, and this was a point in time with the Colts. Remember when they became serious about their craft? Because really, truly, they weren't There was no seriousness going on. I mean, Jim was running things and lifting weight and hanging out with Zoop, and Zoop's a good dude and all, and lifting tractors, and that's all great, but they weren't really serious. Everybody around here was just satisfied because everything was fun. You have an NFL team. That's it. But then they got serious. They got Bill Polian. They drafted Peyton Manning. They brought in Tony Dungy. They got serious about the program. That's what you're hoping one of these days something sparks and they get back to that. And people are going to say easier said than done, but it did not have to be this difficult of a transition, believe me. But that's when they got serious about it. And the Pacers are now serious. Pacers Sports and Entertainment, serious about the craft. And this is why I want this thing to work out with the Pacers more than anything I've ever wanted to see work out around here ever. Because from top to bottom, they have incredible pieces in place to be high-level successful when the rest of the NBA world still treats them like that trade value from that nerd in his basement that I just read to you. That's how you shatter the mold. All right, 239-1070. I got time for you. Dustin Dopirak's going to join us coming up at the top of the hour as well. Hey, this weekend's going to be fun, too. Yeah, I will say this. I look at it like Pacers basketball, Fever basketball. You're hoping the Colts get back in one of these days. How about centralized downtown? We can also, win that back. Get serious about that again one of these days, too. I love what's going on in other spots, Mass Ave, Fountain Square, what's going on, down the near south side. Right? There's, a lot of good stuff going on in and around downtown, around the Alexander, whatever the hell they call that down there now, Fletcher Place, all good stuff. But you got to win back centralized downtown one of these days, too. It's all a part of winning. Just on different levels and different avenues. So this Pacer team, this Pacer organization is not a AAA franchise for anybody's ass. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Dustin Dopirak, top of the hour. Dane Fife after 5. Mike Chappell's going to be in there, too. Simple Minds, Soft Sell. And we got Modern English tickets to give away for you. So sit tight for that. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ding dong.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Does anybody have the audio to the Pistons broadcast last night and what they said about the Pacers and Halliburton? Do we have that anywhere, James? Somebody had sent this to me. This is from Section 344 Lions. I'm assuming this is a Pistons fan. Logically speaking, Halliburton would drive me nuts if I was a Pacers fan. The dancing, the shimmies, up 20 against teams like the Pistons and Wizards is cute. But come playoff time and in tough moments, he tends to go silent and MIA. Gets old at some point, the definition of a front runner. So they go to the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago. The team that you follow lost, 28, 29 consecutive last year. You're not going to find the respect that apparently you say you're looking for by crying everybody a river right here. All right? The Pistons were the issues last night. They came in with the attitude. They had one guy that had no business at all in wanting to play. He just wanted to be a horse's ass, and that was it. That was his sole purpose there. That's it. Do you think it said that like on the dry erase board in the locker room on the scouting report? Yeah, Cade Cunningham, you're out there to score and, obviously pass out of the double team if it comes. Isaiah Stewart, you're out there to be a horse's ass. I mean, seriously. Not out there to shoot, not out there to rebound, you're not out there to play defense. You're out there to agitate. That's it. I mean, until you all get on the same, listen, the Pacers are still searching for this too. I mean, they earned respect from a year ago going to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they're still a work in progress. But to suggest that when you're up, if you don't like shimmying, everybody in the NBA does it. There's always some gesture after making a three, and I'm talking about guys that shoot it at a 20% clip to guys that shoot it at a 45% clip. It doesn't matter. Somebody's going to give you the three goggles or do whatever they do. And believe me, if I made a three in the NBA, I'd tell everybody about it too. Now, in terms of being down 20, I probably wouldn't say, hey, I tell right in your eyeball. Because that's stupid. And that's what this is about. It's about earning respect, and there's no respect earned there yet. And if you watched that at all last night, and certainly if you were there, I think you probably saw it a little bit more, especially if you watch the Pistons bench. It starts with their head coach, because that guy is up and pissing and moaning the entire time. There's what should really get old, is that. The crying and the whining about every single call. The demeaning, the name calling. Hey, listen, if it happens, it happens, but then you don't sidestep that and blame everybody else for it. And you're also in charge in preparation for your guys, and your guys let you down last night. That was a winnable game for them at many points, but you never thought they were going to win the game because you thought they were out there for other reasons and other motives are playing a role, and that was true. Can't have it. It's from Rooster, JMV. Maybe these idiots will shut up, JMV. Can't wait until the deadline passes. I have no idea who Doric Sam is, but I can only imagine who Doric Sam might be with the Miles Turner trade rumors. Pacers not expected to move center amid Laker buzz. I have not. Has anybody seen, and let me know if I'm wrong about this, because I'm not going to try to track down every nerd that has a rumor on the internet, but has anybody with any credibility whatsoever lobbed in one of these trade rumors with the Lakers? Anybody with any form of credibility at all? I don't know who Doric Sam might be, but I've never heard of him, and I don't know how he would have any working knowledge other than reading other nerds like him. If it is a him, I don't know. Again, the Pacers are not the NBA's farm team. You don't trade away a significant piece, which Miles is, with zero replacement for that, and get in return a couple of wet towels and 3 jock straps. All right, this is a team that is being built, constructed, and is on a path to winning and hopefully reaching that level. Sure, you can suggest it's not going to be this year, but that doesn't mean you're not growing toward it. And hell, you never know what's going to happen once you get into the postseason. Crap could happen to them. I mean, it's already happened injury-wise this season. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Dustin Dopirak of the Stars is going to join us. We'll talk about last night, talk about the Hawks coming in on Saturday afternoon, and then a Western road swing, which I think is kind of lame by the NBA considering the Pacers just got back from stinking France, and then you got to go out west for 4. And I know you're saying, well, it's Utah and Salt Lake City. You're going to have to get used to that because then you're in the elevation, and then you go to Portland where it's a struggle, no matter how good or bad they are, and then back-to-back in L.A. Dustin's going to join us. Dane, Fife, Mike Chappell, your chance to win stuff. Don't go anywhere. AAA Membership Lounge, YouTube Live. Get in there or just simply join us. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Most metal ever!
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Tough game for us. I think there was a lot of extracurricular stuff that kind of just mucked the game up. I thought it could have been a lot cleaner of a game, but we knew who we were playing against tonight. But I thought the game could have been managed better outside of just the players. I think, a lot of crazy stuff was allowed on the other end that, and we're getting looked at like we're the guys that are, initiating all that. But like I said, we knew this was a big game. We got to be more poised and more disciplined and executing our game plan, and we can come out with this one.
Cade Cunningham right there about last night. Hey, listen, that was their fault. Look in the mirror. You had one guy out there that did not want to play, didn't want to shoot, didn't want to rebound, had no intention of playing defense. He was out there to be a horse's ass. That's Isaiah Stewart. You had one guy that had zero intention on playing basketball. He was out there to be an agitator. That was it. So if you're looking for answers, or if you're looking a little bit of help from the officiating crew, instead look in the mirror. That's your fault. That's your coach's fault, who endlessly cries and whines and demeans and yells at the officials. And then after the game says it's in defense of his guys. His guys play exactly on the floor and act on the floor how he acts on the sideline. It's a cut in the dry of it. So all these issues, these problems that you described right there, and I like Cade Cunningham. I think he's an outstanding player. But that is a bunch of crap right there. A bunch of crap. And that comes with losing a game where not only you lose, but you get played in the process. They got played. Dane Fife a little bit later on. Mike Chappell a little bit later on. Tickets to give away. Cash only tomorrow. Tavern Tour Stop, Heaven Hill Distillery. Workingman's Friend on the west side. Can you all join us? Will you all be there? I don't normally have you RSVP, but I would like to see all of you that are going to show up tomorrow and join us. It is going to be an absolute blast. Workingman's Friend, the legendary Workingman's Friend. And as you well know, the late, great Robin Miller. Double cheese, no middle bun, and onion rings. And for me, it would be 2 hamburger patties on a plate with a blob of cottage cheese on top of it. But still the same greatness. Workingman's Friend tomorrow, Tavern Tour Stop. I want to see you there. Join us, but cash only. Remember that. On the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from the Star, talking Pacers and more, Dustin Dopirak, who is with us right now. Man, a lot of crying and whining during and after the game for a team that really instigated it all. It has instigated it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd thing to sort of, I guess, compartmentalize the whole thing, because I don't necessarily think the rest of them are instigating at the level. I mean, Isaiah Stewart though is just off the hinges.
He had no other reason to be there but do what he did last night. That's the only reason why he was there.
Even the first game, even the first one, like Cade seemed to be bothered by, and I think Beasley to a certain extent and some other guys were like it. The Pacers keep getting this complaint about front running. About this concept of, well, you guys only talk when you win. And I was like, well, when else would we talk? Why would we talk when we're losing? Who does that?
Sure.
Like when we're getting beat by 24, yeah, we shut up. What were we supposed to say? Like, that's dumb. So, yeah, when we're winning, we talk. What do you want?
Well, that's what losers do. And that's a losing mentality that obviously they believe. And I'm not like JB Bickerstaff. Fine, but I think that he's kind of the head of this entire thing because he allows what takes place on the floor to happen, and therein lies the issues right there. They became more about this other crap than about basketball at certain points last night.
In this one, I mean, I think, I don't want to hate too much on Bickerstaff just because, first off, the Pacers have a lot of respect for him personally. Rick Carlisle went out of his way to call out how great of a job J.B. Bickerstaff did at Cleveland, even when they were over there like last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, because obviously Kenny Atkinson is getting all the pub for being, likely being coach of the year because the Cavs have the best record in the East. And he made a point of saying, hey, J.B. Bickerstaff, did a great job of building this place. Let's not forget that. Like, I mean, he didn't have to do that. Like, that wasn't prompted by any ways. Like,
I bet that's Rick Carlisle gamesmanship, though, right there a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, again, they were in Cleveland. They weren't even
Detroit. Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you know you're going to play him in 3 or 4 games.
He's never done anything but say nice things about him.
Right.
And
sure.
Ty says nice things about him, and the rest of them do. And I think, like, even most of the discussion among, like, everybody that wasn't Isaiah Stewart was just like, oh, you guys are talking too much, or you're not, or you're this, you're that. Isaiah Stewart was just violent. Like, I don't even know what to make of that. And so, like, I think there's a lot of respect, a legitimate respect. I mean, I think I take Halliburton at his word when he said last night, he's like, I really respect what these guys are doing. You know, because this is where a wreck very recently. You know, they were, 14 and 68 last year. 17 and 65 the year before. I mean, they've built this thing up quickly. But again, you have this guy that very clearly, even the first game or game 3, I guess, in the series, runs over and has to insult, Miles Turner for having a hobby. And it was just strange and bizarre. I mean, like, obviously, to your point, like you do have to take responsibility for that as a coach when you have one guy who's just all the way off the chain like that. I mean, there's nothing you can do to justify that forearm shiver. I mean, it was violent. It was assault. And, those two are, I mean, like, Bryant and Stewart are both Rochester guys. I mean, so they got to have, like, some kind of, like, hometown history. And Bryant just seemed shocked by that. Like, what are you doing? And it was ridiculous. So, I mean, he's got to get some level of responsibility for it. I mean, the rest of it was just, like, I think it was being salty about the fact that you're losing, expecting to be able to have come in there and be more motivated and be able to put it together. So, like, a lot of it is, like, more easily explainable stuff. But Stewart was just, like you said, Stewart was out to cause a problem. I mean, he wanted to get into it with James Johnson, and nobody wants to get into it with James Johnson. Like, I mean, he seemed to be doing that to say that he was going to be the guy that could do it, or that it would at least try. And, that would not have ended well for him. So yeah, I mean, that was bizarre. I mean, and it did set the tone for the rest of the night.
It's Dustin Dopirak of the Stars on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, by the way, the Miles Turner, Darth Miles Lego thing may be the most frightening thing ever put together right there. I mean, I'm all for hobbies and that's cool and everything, but that thing's frightening right there. They should make a horror movie out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can make a face out of Legos and it not be horrifying.
Yeah,
but, it adds to it for sure. I mean, because the level of detail, the hair, the everything.
It's frightening. It is.
Yeah, it really is. It's something to look at. But I mean, it's a good way of getting the last word. I thought, bringing that one in and just saying like, hey, like, you played yourself, which I thought was kind of funny. And like I said, maybe Isaiah Stewart needs a hobby. Maybe that's what this comes down to. He needs a creative outlet.
Well, I know. I bet I know what his hobby is. I don't know if I'd want to be anywhere near it.
Nope.
Dustin Dopirak joins us. I did want to ask you this since we're on the Miles take right here. Mm-hmm. Has there anybody that's been reputable, anybody with any credibility whatsoever that's dropped in one of these just asinine, these ridiculous trade rumors, especially regarding the Lakers and Miles? Because I have not seen any. Normally it looks like just like dorks and nerds that do it on social media. Is that true?
I mean, as far as anybody that's pitched one, I thought Mark Stein actually had, Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, I think, do a pretty good job with the Stein line. And if Mark had a pretty kind of in-depth, not necessarily attributing to anybody in particular, but kind of take, or not take, just some reporting on where he sees this at this point. And I thought that this was pretty accurate. He just said basically they don't want to move him. They're aware, obviously, that the contract is coming to the end. I mean, so they're taking people's calls, but it's basically like there's a high bar here. Basically like you got to really, knock their socks off, because it's like, okay, like they view it as they're winning. He's a key compartment. He's a key component to this whole thing. He's unique. He fits Tyrese Halliburton in a certain way. He fits Pascal Siakam in a certain way. He's been, blocking shots that he's picked his, his shot block rate up from last year. He's a key piece, and obviously they're going to have to spend a lot of money to keep him, and that, might get them. They're certainly going to get him in the luxury tax. It's, likely going to get him to that up to that first apron. But all the same, it's like, okay, well, who are you going to get that's better? And their view is like they've got to at least get a starting level center, and more stuff if they're going to think about moving this. And I think they really don't want to, basically. And I think someone was going to have to. They don't want to not take calls. They don't want to not find out what's out there. but it also seems like they don't want to make a move at all, and they would rather just be able to make this signing and keep him because, I mean, they seem happy with him. He seems happy with them, and you don't want to mess with things like that. But again, I mean, the only reason to consider it is the money is getting tight, and obviously they're right on the brink of the luxury tax as is. And even if they're willing to pay that, even if it's just about Herb Simon being willing to pay the luxury tax, it's about getting into that first apron, and it becomes almost a situation where you're closer to being locked up with who you have, and basically the question just becomes, do you think the guys you have are good enough?
So, what if you're still growing though? And I thought Dustin, this is what I thought last year when they ended up extending both Siakam and Halliburton. That's where this whole thing started right now. And I'm kind of curious. I have described this. I think that the Pacers are on the verge of a real renaissance period in Pacers sports and entertainment, whether we're talking about the Pacers and their growth and the Fever and Caitlin Clark and their growth. Is that something that organizationally they recognize? So you mentioned that first level, that apron of the luxury tax. How far are the Simons, both Herb in this case and Steven Simon, I would guess, in another case as well, willing to go with this from what you've heard?
It seems like the issue isn't – it seems like they're okay with paying the money. Like it's not – they're not doing it frivolously, basically in the sense that like, even just how they've handled the backup center situation in this case. I mean, they haven't, they obviously managed to find the cheapest way to take care of that, but they managed to get a really effective, second string center in Thomas Bryant. I mean, basically, that cost them nothing. I think he's right around $2 million. I think it's technically under the veteran minimum. And managed to do it without, with just doing a second round pick swap, not even actually losing a pick. So, I mean, they've been trying to be wise, I think, about their sort of marginal deals. They're not trying to go over the luxury tax and start paying a luxury tax for kind of a marginal item. But they want to win again. I mean, that's the impression that I've got is that they want to win again. And if it requires them to throw, to make that investment, they're pretty willing to do it. But I think it's just a case of, them feeling like that's what they're doing, that they are paying to win as opposed to just paying to pay. And that it is going to pay off. So I think there's some level of convincing that needs to be done as far as that's concerned of, okay, what am I getting for my money here? Am I getting a championship contender, or am I just, staying at playoff level? Is that just what it takes to stay at that level? But again, I mean, the apron piece is not just about, what checks, Herb Simon is willing to write. It's about, basically you have this kind of restrictive, the CBA starts to get restrictive there in terms of what else you can do. As far as if you feel like, okay, maybe we actually need another piece here, it's tougher to move because, I mean, it's basically you're only bringing back 100% of salary. For instance, like you've got to match salary, on these trades. I mean, there's a lot less leeway for things that you can do. I don't think you can do a sign and trade. Things become a lot more difficult to pull off as far as anything else that you want to build on. And then you get to the second apron and it's even more restrictive. So when you get deep into there, like obviously you have to keep reconsidering, okay, what is this going to mean for the next couple moves? And you obviously get into, what kind of extension you'd be willing to give to Benedict Mathurin, what kind of extension in the future you might be willing to give to Jarris Walker. All that stuff plays in down the line, and they've got obviously a number of guys are locked up for several years. Some of them are obviously tradable. They've got movable contracts that aren't absurd amounts of money, so they can piece them together in different kind of trades. But it starts to get restrictive in terms of how you can operate. You're seeing teams like Milwaukee and Boston. It's hard for them to do anything right now.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of Boston also had, when they got Holiday, that was a hell of a deal. They already had the big two there. And then Porzingis fits in fine, but they had Derek White. I don't think anybody ever thought Derek White was going to transition into that level of a player. No. And let's face it, Dustin, that's what needs to happen with the Pacers. They need consistently somebody like Mathurin, somebody like Walker. I think that Nembhard's already there, but they need somebody, maybe that fifth, to transition into a Derek White type of presence moving forward here. I think that to end up justifying all this or believing that their growth does have an end result at the highest level and not just playoff worthy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, and that's the thing is you're really the argument to keep making these extensions to keep basically locking these guys up long term is saying that the potential is there, basically, and it's believing in the potential. And I think, a guy like Mathurin, I think you have to give him credit for the leaps that he's made, especially just becoming what Rick Carlisle has asked him to become. He's not perfect at it at this point, but in terms of being the quick decision maker, the quick catch and shoot guy, rather than the ball stopping and him wanting to cross over somebody 3 and 4 times before he goes to the rim, and just really thinking about what it's going to take to score on somebody one-on-one. I think he's come a long way. I think he makes much quicker decisions when it comes to whether to drive or move the ball. And, he's, become a really good catch and shoot guy. You look at his numbers, they're dramatically better at year 3 as opposed to year 1. I think defensively he's become a lot better. You can trust him now on all-star caliber players. In most cases, he's getting the second best perimeter guy at this point. So you're seeing growth there, and I think they are much closer now than they were at the beginning of the year to feeling like, okay, this is a guy that you can trust the long term, that he's going to fit in with the Halliburtons and Siakams and Turners and those guys, but he is still going to be able to bring the kind of talent that he's got. That was the reason why they took him with the 6th overall pick, and the reason why he was first team all rookie. They're starting to see it. They're starting to see the growth there. Jarris Walker obviously see it more in flashes. It's not necessarily consistent yet, and obviously, with Nesmith coming back, you now have this. It's a little bit more logjam when it comes to the wing rotation. But I think Master in particular look at it and say there's a lot of growth there. Nembhard, they certainly feel like really is exploding, and they really are seeing the payoff there, and feel like, man, they got a really good deal just getting him for 3 years at $18 million each. I think that is something they're trying to say, that part of the argument is, do you even really have to get somebody else, or are these guys going to naturally grow into who you need them to be?
It's Dustin Dopirak of the Star covers the Pacers. 5 o'clock to start. 4:30 coverage begins right here on Saturday afternoon with that late matinee they have with the Atlanta Hawks in town before they embark on a 4-game Western road swing that begins in Salt Lake City next week. So I talked to Chad Buchanan often, and one of the things we discussed is what they have to do to be better in terms of team-wise. And we always discuss both rebounding and defense. Now, rebounding, I think, is relatively the same. And our point was always, it can't be about one dude. It's got to be about everybody. I do think as a team, they rebound from person to person better than they did a year ago. I think we've seen that. But the other thing that has transpired in the past 18, 19 games, all with the exception of what we witnessed, and not so much last night, I guess, against Detroit, the defense wasn't great, but certainly it wasn't last Thursday in France against San Antonio. For the most part, the defense has been really good in the last 18. Are we seeing them come around at least more frequently, more consistently defensively? And you add that with a consistent level of fast-paced offense, that seems like the magic formula to help raise their game overall as far as the Eastern Conference is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I think, I know Brian Windhorst talked about this and saying, even from a national perspective, they're like, these guys are actually starting to look scary because they look like a team you don't want to play. They have started to rely on the full court man-to-man more, basically saying, okay, this has got to be a weapon, and they're going to lean into it.
Right.
I think that's another thing, that they're deciding, okay, I think when we asked Rick Carl about the rotation and Nesmith coming back and how you're going to handle all this, he's like, well, if you think about it, that allows us to play more full court man to man. And we can, basically we're going to have fresh legs because we're going to have 11 guys that we can run out there. Even they were certainly missing Mathurin and Nembhard last night, but they were really bringing with the pressure with Shepard and with Walker, basically putting him on Cade Cunningham. And I know like one of the first plays, Walker had after he checked in, early-ish in the first quarter was he and Miles Turner trapped Cunningham into an 8-second violation. Sort of their view is, let's lean into this. We talked about them at the beginning. We talked to them about it at the beginning of the year, like how much do you guys expect to do this? Because it was a big piece of their success, basically in the playoffs. And they're like, well, obviously it's tough to do it over 82. You don't want to wear your guys out entirely, but it does seem like they're a little bit more willing to push, basically push the envelope on that and say, you know what, we have the capacity to really do this. We can go with this for longer than we can, and we would have thought.
Dustin, how many other teams do that as frequently as? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do that as frequently as the Pacers do it?
Not many, as far as I can tell. I mean, basically, I'm sure I don't have like a chart, in front of me that would say like, okay, this is the percentage of possessions, everybody else does it, but it definitely it stands out for sure. I mean, and certainly I think. One game that obviously stood out a whole lot was basically the second half of that Cleveland game after Tyrese Halliburton goes down with the groin strain. And Kenny Atkinson said after that, he said, man, I did not expect that. I mean, they held the Cleveland to 40 points in the second half. And, obviously was I think the most efficient NBA team in the league. He's like, you don't see it like that. He's like, you especially don't see it from – it's one thing to see it from Andrew Nembhard. It's another thing when you see it less from your 4 and your 5 man. I mean, you saw Pascal Siakam got a steal just by hounding Max Strus in that game, and then the other game against San Antonio where they really dialed it up. Miles Turner was guarding Wembanyama 94 feet, and he managed to get a steal by knocking away an inbounds pass at the opposite baseline. I mean, that you don't see. You'll see guys pick up the point guard 94 feet or whatever and just making sure there's some token pressure on him. But you don't see it like this where it's all 5 guys. If someone else is back there, if a forward is back there to bring the ball up, they're following. That you don't always see. Sometimes you kind of like let them go if they're going to let their 4-man handle the basketball on the way out. In this case, they're still attacking those guys, and it's turned into a lot of it's made it harder for teams to run their offense, and it's also created steals and stuff like that gives TJ McConnell some room to go do his thing. It's been really, really effective.
Dustin Dopirak of the Stars of the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Before I let you go, availability for Nembhard and Mathurin coming up on Saturday with their situations.
Tough question. I think Carlisle suggested that they were hopeful for Andrew on Saturday. Basically, as of then, they didn't know too much about Mathurin's state of affairs. Saw him briefly in the locker room. He was kind of like, I guess he was like dropping off a laundry or something like that, like whatever he'd worn to walk through or whatever before he decided he wasn't going to be able to go. And so, you never know with an illness, so don't know anything new about that today. I mean, obviously it could be a 24-hour flu that he could be fine by now and won't even be an issue. So we do got to check on the injury report to see what's coming out here. Well, actually, they won't even be on until tomorrow. So, they did think – Carlisle did say he does think there's a good chance for Nembhard. I remember he was listed with a back sprain last year. It might be kind of a similar deal that just kind of flared up, and that's the term Carlisle used. But they did seem at least hopeful and believe that Saturday was at least possible. So my expectation would be that Nembhard would be listed as questionable again.
So I did want to ask you one more thing regarding this upcoming 4-game Western road swing. I'm assuming Utah will look pretty much intact on Monday, but Portland may be an outlier here because there are a lot of names, including Jeremy Grant, and all these trade options and rumors that are out there. Where Portland, you think, on Tuesday in that back-to-back look a little bit different than maybe they do right now?
Could be a chance. I mean, obviously they could move some guys, and you certainly also have cases where you hold guys out just in case you're going to move them later. So that could certainly swing things. I mean, the Pacers have definitely benefited more than a few times from whether it's injuries or back-to-backs or other random stuff. This year, just facing some teams that have been missing somebody. And Portland can still be dangerous. I mean, they did just beat Milwaukee the other night. I was kind of impressed with what they were able to do in that game. So they're as far down
Milwaukee in a second of a back-to-back too on that. So
exactly. So I mean, they can be dangerous. And like I said, obviously that's what the Pacers will be on is the second night of a back-to-back out west, and that won't be easy. So I think there's a good chance they get a benefit there where there's somebody, 1 or 2 players that might have moved or either or are being held out just in case they do, so they might get that benefit. They've lost those games in the past, but they have taken advantage more of that this year. I mean, I think that trend of the Pacers blowing it against undermanned teams has been lesser this year.
I think I cussed out Shaedon Sharpe a couple of different times, and he looked really good the other night against Milwaukee.
For sure. He's a heck of a player.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
He's a heck of a player quickly.
All right, so no movement whatsoever, right? Trade deadline-wise for the Pacers, 0?
I mean, I don't expect much. I mean, usually they at least do a thing, and there might be something under the radar that we're not thinking of. I would be surprised. I mean, obviously, I presume they have found out what the cost is on Cameron Johnson. I think, that's the one guy that you look at because that's a guy who fits. I don't know that it's a question of is it worth it? Number one, but it would seem to me, my guess, because of how desired he is across the league and how much he's a guy that just fits with everybody. That I mean, he fits really well with the Pacers. You could certainly imagine him doing what he does with them, but that's the case for everybody. And there certainly are contenders, championship contenders that are looking at him. And so you just have to imagine the price is high. And I wonder if Toppin and Neesmith gets it done anymore, basically. And so I certainly you wouldn't want to move Miles Turner in that case because I mean you're filling one hole to create another.
Yeah.
And so then certainly you're in a bind and you need to find a way to go get Vucevic or somebody like that, and who knows how you can make that work. You could do a massive.
You think there's any way right now that they know that they're going to be able to fit Miles in, and they're going to? You think there's any way that both sides know that that's coming?
There's a chance. I mean, like I said, there's a little bit too much smoke to think that it's done. I mean, my guess would be that it's like, all right, like if you're fighting over a few million, to say, okay, would you do 25 versus 30? I think is sort of that might be a question of, all right, do we ultimately think that we're going to find a middle ground there? And so then is it worth chancing this? They might be there. But it does seem like at the end of the day they want to keep him. But they just felt like they had to at least keep their options open or just, pick up the phone more or less to find out, what was going to be available there. And so, I mean, it seems like the general consensus is that it's not going to happen. So, I mean, they might have come to that point or or they might just believe that eventually they're going to get it ironed out, even if they don't know for sure what the final number is going to be that eventually they are going to come to an agreement. I mean, they might have. I just think it's interesting just how you watched, the rumors go from, oh, hey, they might not be willing to pay this guy to, yeah, it looks more like they probably are.
It's a renaissance era we're entering into right now with Pacers Sports Entertainment. And the quicker they recognize it, the happier we all will be.
I believe it. Call him that.
Can I wish that into real? Can I do that?
I think you can wish that into reality. I mean, it's heading in a good direction. Obviously, the question is, like how high did these guys fly? I mean, you're certainly going to see the Fever are going to be one of the most, like they're going to be one of the biggest things going. I mean, I thought like it was wild to see Kelsey Mitchell re-signing was like a big story on SportsCenter. I'm like, it's a game changer now because they're not just noticing Caitlin Clark; they're noticing the pieces around her at this point. And so, they're certainly swiftly becoming a team that really matters. And the Pacers have steadily been following that path at this point. And again, you're coming off the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, they're looking at a tough playoff path. I mean, obviously, right now you've got to say, all right, Cleveland and Boston are the favorites to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like one issue that they got is the Pacers, if they end up with a top 5 seed, that means they've got to go on the top half of the bracket. They've got to beat Cleveland. And so, if they're going to get back to the same place they were. But still, I mean, they're certainly at least starting to establish themselves as a team that's going to be there year after year. That's going to be in the mix with whatever happens in the East. And so if that counts, man, I think they're pretty much there.
Sell every inch of the floor, every inch of space for the Fever games, advertising-wise. And then the quicker they can get rid of yes-sirs, the better for us all, too. So I will only agree to a renaissance period with both if those two things occur. Yeah. No yes. Just say no to yes. Go back to We Grow Basketball here. Anything. Pacer pride from the 1980s. Anything but yes, sirs. My brother, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as always.
It's Dustin Dopirak of the Star, covers the Pacers. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Anything. That's the only thing that bums me out right now is yes, sirs. And I can't get past it. It's the only thing that bums me out. Sell every inch, advertise every inch of the. I mean, you have Cheez-Its here. Whatever, everywhere. Every inch of the floor has to have an advertisement on it, James. It'll be like the floor is going to look like somebody's NASCAR, like back in the heyday and not NASCAR right now. Quick one, we'll come back. Mike Chappell, top of the hour. Dane, Fife. Going to join us coming up at the 5 o'clock hour, too. Got tickets to give away and got a must-attend tomorrow at a legendary location. I'll explain coming up next.
Drunk and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow is going to be a spectacular day. Who's ready? I think we got some warmer temperatures coming in for the weekend. If it gets up near 57, like they say on Sunday, James, that's going to feel like 80 around here. Seriously, compared to what it was last week. But great weekend start with a spectacular tavern tour stop with Heaven Hill Distillery with me and Brent Halverson and all of you tomorrow at Workingman's Friend. Over off of Belmont, near West Side. How many years has that been? Like 150 years or something like that? Absolutely incredible. I love Becky. Love the folks at Workingman's Friend. And certainly when we go, we always think about the late, great Robin Miller and all the times we have spent over there. That's why I want everybody to join us tomorrow so we can all celebrate together. And then maybe I'll have to get a ride home, but we'll figure that out later. But I cannot wait until tomorrow, and hopefully I see you out there. And keep in mind, Workingman's Friend, it is cash only. So that is tomorrow. Near West Side, Tavern Tour Stop, number 1 of 2025. Me, Brent Halverson, and all of you at the legendary Workingman's Friend. Now, we are going to have an absolute blast, I promise. So I mentioned this last night. The Pistons act like jackasses just like their coach. I'm sorry, I think he does. And I know that what Rick Carlisle said about him in Cleveland, and I'm sure that that's what Rick means. But I'm also sure there's probably some gamesmanship in there someplace. But his demeanor on the sideline is much like how his teams act on the floor. I got this, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I get the, really? When has Bickerstaff ever acted like a jackass? Well, he did last night. If you want to know when, last night. That's why I made the statement last night. Be for real, dude. I'm not a Pistons fan at all, and even less of a Stewart fan, but to get on here and post untrue blank like this is just stupid. It's not stupid. All you have to do is watch. All you have to do is watch. And clearly right now they want respect that they have yet to earn. And that's not saying it all. Like, I think Cade Cunningham is really good. I mean, you'd have to be really stupid not to think that he is a top level and going to be a top level player. But you can't get over the level of jackassery that we saw. And especially if one player brings you down, then that's still on you. But you cannot tell me that did not have a profound effect across the board. I mean, Cade Cunningham's talking about it after the game. BT Dew sent me this. Workingman's Friend celebrated 5 days ago, James, their 107th birthday. 107.
So that would put them at 1918?
About that. I can't do math. You asking me that? Corey Kinney, by the way, I saw your dad, Corey, yesterday. Great time. Tom's Watch Bar. We'll be back again, but I saw a lot of you down there prior to the Pacer game off of Illinois. Tom's Watch Bar downtown. Corey says, I'm going to try to make it tomorrow on my way back from Evansville. Well, good thing about it, you're going to be northbound on the Redneck Audubon, which means at least before you get to Martinsville and you have that dude down there hiding in the weeds on I-69 right across from the school. You guys encountered that before? Barney Fife hides in the weeds down there, and you grab by. Woo! Seriously, I don't know but he hides in the weeds. They have this tall, what the hell's that tall grass? Where's Pat Sullivan when I need him? That tall grass that's there, and he hides in the weeds like Barney Fife right there. I'm thinking, come on, man. It's an interstate. Anyway. Tell you what, that is about as bad. The other thing, and I'm glad that our friend James Michelle informed me of this yesterday. So I go up, and I'm a part of a podcast with Darren Andrews and WeGrowHairIndy.com. We're talking about the 9 years I've been with them, and those of you that have also joined, talked about the evolution of sports and all this other stuff. In a podcast, I was at the Carmel Library, which looks nothing like the Eastern High School library that I had. I did not see Miss McConnell like I had at the Eastern High School library. I don't think there's any card catalogs. But the Carmel Library, and this is like the Central Library, that's like one of a couple. But we go up there and do a podcast, and Michelle James had told me on the northwest side that hot sauce is absolutely poured all over the road up there. And she was right. There are both sides, gunning you, right there around 86th Street. So I slowed down. That was a hell of a device right there, too, because people were getting picked off like that. The whole end of the month program right there. Like that.
Got to hit the quota.
Woo! Yeah, that guy. I'm sure if you guys have been on the Redneck Audubon going through Martinsville right there, you've seen this dude. And I'm sure it's like one of many. That's, I guess, their spot. That's their parking spot right there in the weeds. But, Corey, the good thing about it is when you get down where nobody gives a crap what goes on, like south of Bloomington, where I'm from, where you're out of sight, out of mind, you can just drive as fast as you want. Just put the hammer down. And then watch yourself when you ramp the bridges down there, because the bridges are a little, like the road is lower than the bridge. So you're like Bo and Luke Duke when you cross all those bridges. Love it. I love the Redneck Audubon, I do. But hopefully we will see you coming up tomorrow. JMV. What is this? Benedict Mathurin is reportedly drawing significant interest on the trade market. Jeff Stevens sent me this. Your thoughts? Well, I think this is stupid. For what? What are we talking about here? It says significant. So wait, just because. Who is Dan Woik? Pro Hoops writer. He covers the Lakers. My God. The Lakers just think the Pacers, I guess they probably think about that with most other NBA franchises, or just like a AAA farm club. Indiana guard Benedict Mathurin is being monitored by nearly every team seen as a buyer at the deadline, according to one scouting executive. But because the Pacers are playing such good basketball, the team is expected to seek a player it values while trying to recoup the first-round pick it spent on Mathurin in a deal. All right. Am I wrong? Is anybody else cool with them staying where they are? Are you okay? And I know that we're a win or else society, and they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it's going to be hard to navigate that. You can have a better season, a growing better season, and not reach that level this year in the postseason. Are we okay where they are right now? Is there anybody out there that actually wants to see them do some trade deadline work? And I want to know, it's got to be somebody that knows what they're talking about, not, one of you jackwads out there that know nothing, but somebody that really know, is there a reason? Because, listen, they have shortcomings. I know at times I sound like that they're the Cleveland Cavaliers this year in the NBA, and they're not. They're an unfinished product. But I like what they have stacked up. And I especially like the way that they play. That's why I asked Dustin Dopirak a little bit earlier about how many other teams go full court and pick you up full court, because that jams up teams offensively. Now, all of a sudden, you get down there, and if you're not able to break that down at the point of attack, and create a little havoc on your own, maybe get a couple of, 3-on-2s, 2-on-1 types of situations. If you're not able to do that, then you end up wasting a lot of the shot clock and have to initiate your offense late, and you get into late clock situations, and that can be problematic. I like the Pacers in that mode defensively. It's almost like a counter to what they do. What they do offensively is they press the issue. And what you do defensively is maybe you take a shortcoming and you press the issue. And you saw they do that with Cunningham. You saw them do that in France in game number 2 against San Antonio. I really do like it. All right, quick break. We shall return coming up on the other side. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, Workingman's Friend. I got tickets to give away. Simple Minds, Soft Cell, Modern English, June, Ruoff Music Center. That coming up. Mike Chappell, Dane Fife, 5 o'clock, hour 2. Yeah, IU Purdue. Round number 1 coming up tomorrow night from Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. We'll discuss that with the former Hoosier assistant coach and a certain friend of the show, the former player Dane Fife, coming up at 5:30. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Celebrating a birthday today. Actually, a couple. Never saw one of the celebratory birthday individuals today. Phil Collins. 74 years of age today, James, is Phil Collins. I believe he is officially done touring, too, and it sucks that I never saw Phil Collins in any capacity. Not solo, not with Genesis, nothing. Zero. What the hell's wrong with me?
Yeah, that sucks. He has a really hard time getting around these days, doesn't he?
Does, yeah. Yeah. 74 years of age is Phil Collins today. Also celebrating, how about this? And a lot of you are going to automatically say Norman Dale all the way. Best role of all time, actor Gene Hackman. Again, most of you would suggest from Hoosiers, Coach Norman Dale. He is 95 years of age today, has now long since retired from acting. But did you know, you big Mel Brooks fan over there? No? Did you know that Gene Hackman, this is according to The Sting online, great entertainment site on X, Hackman begged Gene Wilder, his tennis partner at the time, for a role in the Mel Brooks classic Young Frankenstein. Because Hackman, in the early 70s, with Popeye Doyle and the French Connection, was concerned he was going to be typecast. So if you remember, in Young Frankenstein, he played the blind man for free and ad-libbed the part with the quote, "I was going to make espresso." Gene Hackman, also Lex Luthor from the original motion picture Superman back in 1978.
Yeah, with Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, and then the subsequent sequels to that, too, I think. I don't know how many of them he was in, but Gene Hackman, 95 years of age today. Celebrate that. All right, 239-1070. I mentioned Mike Chappell and Dane Fife in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul will lead us there right now. Join the show, Paul. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, bud?
Great, Paul.
Hey, it was great what you're talking about Hackman and everything, but I love the Pacers, and I saw you out talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers this last spring. But what I wanted to talk about, I'm glad of the Pacers, what they're doing, but they were talking on the radio about trying to cut down the time of the games,
right?
Like, which is insane to me.
I hate it.
So upset about that when I heard it, and I was thinking of you, and I was going, trying to cut off the game time.
Yeah,
why don't they just, and you're talking about cutting down 3-pointers, and I thought, well, if you want to, make more 3-pointers and try and hit it with the rebounds and stuff, but I can't believe all that, man. But
I heard that cutting it down to what 10 minutes a quarter. I think it follows what they're talking about.
And Jake, those guys talking about. I hope we got to go out on a little guy and kick their ass about what they were talking about, Jake. But anyway, that's nuts about the trying to slow the games down.
Sure.
Have you heard about that?
I did, Paul. Thank you for the call, and I do remember seeing you at Red Hot Chili Peppers back in the summertime. Couple of things. I heard that about Adam Silver. I think he told that to Dan Patrick on his radio show. Or not a radio show, whatever content creating. It's not a radio show anymore. I don't know what it is. Right? Not a podcast. It's is it streaming? Maybe still on the radio. I'm not, anyway. But yeah, I heard them maybe trimming down, I think from to 10 minutes? I think something like that. I doubt if that were to happen. What was the other thing he mentioned? He mentioned the guys going after Jake. That was the Hoosier Hysterics. I don't know them. I just have a friend that I think has worked with them that has been a part of their NIL process. And they had Brian Evans, who's been on this show a number of times and is very outspoken about the IU basketball program led by Mike Woodson. He was equally outspoken on their show, their podcast, I guess. And Mike Woodson kind of cut them out of, the whole NIL money-raising program, whatever, and I think they got bent out of shape about that. So let's face the facts here. They took a shot at Jake because Jake had Isaiah Thomas on his show, and Isaiah Thomas was going to bat for Mike Woodson. The Hoosier Hysterics would get in an outhouse in Shakamak State Park on a Dixie Cup and string to have Isaiah Thomas on their podcast. So that's where that falls. So their problem is not with Jake. Their problem is with IU and Mike Woodson. And they, just like Jake, I mean, hell, if they would reach out to me, but I don't think any of the pro Mike Woodson people are going to reach out to me because I'm the one that started with Brian Evans in the first place, and I think I'm viewed as the enemy right now. I don't care. But for Jake, he had nothing to do with it. It was Isaiah Thomas stumping for Mike Woodson, and it's a similar situation. Exactly what these guys would do. If Isaiah Thomas called, hey, you're going to get on your podcast, they would have him in a second. In a second. In the back stall, at the hyper, in the locker room, second. So I think you can leave Jake out of that and just go after who you want to go after in this, and that's clearly now being bent out of shape in Mike Woodson. And he's not at a loss for people going at him right now either. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Mike Chappell, Dane Fife, 5 o'clock hour. Tickets to give away. Paul, thank you for the call. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Now talk to him, damn it.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Dane Fife at the bottom of the hour. You fans, hoops fans, be ready for that. Dustin Dopirak a little bit earlier. Workingman's Friend tomorrow, cash only. Remember that. Becky, we're coming. Heaven Hill Distillery Tavern Tour Stop number 1 of 2025. The legendary Workingman's Friend coming up tomorrow. Get there early. I'm going to try to get there as early as I can. Me, Brent Halverson, again, Tavern Tour Stop, Workingman's Friend, coming up on the show tomorrow. And a busy show with that tomorrow. Meantime, Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Right now, Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 joins us. And every time we bring up Workingman's Friend, I'm sure much like I do, we think and relive those great moments we have had in that place, that legendary place with another legend, the late Robin Miller.
It's one of those, they always we get the couple tables in the corner.
Yep.
It's a noisy place anyway.
Yes.
But Robin's voice and vocabulary still kind of dominated the day. Yeah, I mean, I've not been there it's probably been 6 months or so. But yeah, every time you're there, you're just thinking, you look around and it's just such a cool place. And again, don't bring your credit cards because they won't accept them. But it's a cool place, and yeah, whenever I go there, I go to Iria's, and those are places that Robin and our band of former Indy Star guys have always frequented.
When you first started, when the Colts first got to Indy, you became their beat writer instantaneously. When you really got into it, and obviously, R and Bill were a part of it, being columnists as well. Did the Colts ever react differently to you because of what was being written by them?
Well, it depends on the person. Bill Tobin, when they talk about painting, first of all, I was John Banch's backup for about 3 or 4 years before I took over as the main beat guy. But yeah, normally Bill Tobin and Bill Pulley to a sort of the same. They used that broad brush. They didn't care whose name was on the story. If you wrote bad about their team or a player, whether it was me or Robin or Bill or whatever, it was you. It was you're all guilty. Fortunately, as we've moved forward, I think most people, certainly Jim Irsay and a lot of the coaches, understood whose name was on a story. And columnists, it's the lines have been blurred a lot.
Sure.
In the last 10 years to where. It used to be if you're the beat guy, you just stuck to the facts, and this is what you saw. And more though, you put your slant on things, what you see, and why you think it happened. Not to the extent that a Bob Kravitz or a Robin Miller or a Bill Benner did. They're columnists, and they're columnists for a reason. And I'm a beat guy for all these years for a reason. And it is different. You're wired different. You just are. But, yeah, it was always funny how – now, one thing I credit Robin for, when he ripped somebody, he'd be out there the next day in the locker room. And he wasn't a drive-by, critic. He would rip Troy Azine for not being a very good left tackle, and then he would be out there the next day, talking with him. Sometimes you found players that hey, if you're not being personal, if you're coming at me and with whatever and it's fair – a lot of them are okay with it. Some aren't. Some are never okay with it. But I've always thought as long as you're fair. And sometimes when you're a columnist, and Robin was, again, cut from a different mold, where he occasionally it got personal, and that got him in trouble in more than one occasion, whether it was A.J. Floyd or Jeff George or whomever. But that's how Robin was wired. Robin, again, was different. He was just over the line a lot. I never got that impression that much with Bob Kravitz, although he and Bill Pulley, and whenever Bill Pulley calls you a rat or a sewer rat, you've touched a nerve. But I've never wanted to be a columnist. You've got to be wired a certain way to write a certain way, and that's never been the way I am. And again, Robin was the extreme, as he was an extreme in a lot of areas.
When I talked to R, and then we'll get to the present day, the modern day Colts. When I talked to R, I more than occasionally brought up the old scout. And I always thought that the old scout was, once I found out who it was, I always thought that was an incredible release. Was it not?
No question. Yeah, people thought it was John Banch.
Yeah.
Because of John Banch is the old school. And,
I think Trudeau's the only one, was it not? Art always told me Trudeau was the only one that knew the truth.
Probably, and it was a great release because, he took shots. Robin took shots.
Yeah.
And that was a chance to take shots. And until people knew, they didn't know who the heck it was. And Robin wasn't going to just say, yeah, it was me. So, yeah, it was that's why I say Robin really, he'd survive and probably thrive in today's media environment because it's just, there's the lines aren't blurred. There aren't any lines anymore. It seems like boy, don't say that, don't cross that. No, you just go ahead. And I always was surprised that he lasted at the Star as long as he did, because he just didn't follow protocol or things. But boy, I tell you, he was dedicated to the job, and I loved working with him. But he was just, again, if people nowadays don't know Robin or of Robin, whatever we say you just can't appreciate it. I mean, he was the guy on the road a lot as our columnist, and I had to work with, and not that I had to work, but I got to work with, and I've got stories, and we'd always tell him it's a working man's friend, and he'd walk into a press box and plop down his candy and his a Pepsi guy.
Yep.
And then he brings out his gold sheet, which is a betting.
Yeah.
It's a betting info. And I said, Robin, can you at least hide your gold sheet and please don't call bits in from the press box? and he finally got to where he would go out in the hallway and use a phone. But that was Robin. It was, again, he didn't, if he knew the rules, he didn't care about them. But I am a much better person and probably a journalist to some degree because of art, because he just opens up your eyes on things that maybe you weren't looking at.
I cannot imagine being a part of this community, with all of us over the years without the influence and the friendship of Robin Miller. And I got in on the party relatively late. And to get everybody on the same page, the old Scout back in the print edition of the Star, that's the printed paper of the Star, I think it was once a week during the football season. It was basically a New York Post, right, type of thing where he would basically, right. The old Scout is supposed to be this old leather-helmeted football player, and it was serious shots in like one-line kind of blurbs yep. at basically anybody, and especially those within the Colts. And I was always kind of curious, how well did that go? Were you able to track how people were interested in that portion of the paper compared to other sections of it?
Not really. I mean, the team did, back then we didn't get much feedback. The one thing that I always remember, and this should be guidelines for every owner, where I thought they fired Ron Meyer or somebody, and Robin wrote a column, and he said, you stopped, too low. You should have fired the owner too, which, was either Jimmy or Bob Irsay at the time. And quite a nasty column that Robin wrote. But the next day, I remember talking with Jim Irsay. He said, as long as guys are fair, now whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But he said, talk good about us, talk bad about us. When you stop talking about us, we have problems. So smart people realize that criticism comes. You hope that most of it is fair and not personal, bringing families into it or whatever. And again, Robin, that was a line that Robin occasionally, certainly crossed, and it hurt him at times. But that's him. He was just he did things his way, and for a long time, he got away with it because again, I thought that in normal places that may not have played well. But again, he was a genuine person, just like Jim Irsay is a genuine person. And if you knew Robin, the one thing you realize is the loyalty. When you run his good side, and he'd go to hell and back for you. He would, and he's done that for a lot of people. So yeah, I think about him. I see pictures. Steve Shuck puts out pictures occasionally through the years at the Speedway, and it's really we'll get together with. I did something the other day with Bill Benner. And it's just great to get together with those guys because that's who we grew up with. And whenever I get a chance at IREs, at a tribe game, or at Working Man, even if I'm not getting around real well because of back surgery or whatever, I try to go because I cherish those guys. And boy, we keep losing a guy every other year. So you try to keep in contact with the Phil Richards and Tom Reitmans and Jim Russells and all those guys. Mark Ambrosius, because Kurt Cavan. I see Kurt Cavan's going into the Indiana Sports Writers Hall of Fame in April, and those are people that you really cherish the influence and the relationship you've had with these people.
All right, Mike Chappell with us. Colts modern day wise on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm curious, what do you think is the type of quarterback that they're going to focus in on here? I mean, is it as easy? Because, I mean, they're going to have to be decisions made, and you kind of wonder what's going to happen or has to happen with Pittsburgh and others that might have availability regarding, I think everybody's front runner so far has been a guy like Justin Fields. But who do you think might be this veteran, competitive, at the quarterback position target for the Colts in the offseason?
Yeah, we throw out Justin Fields' name because he's similar in style and skill set. So that if something happens with Richardson, which things have happened to Richardson, you're not totally going from Richardson to Joe Flacco, they couldn't be any more different at quarterback. Yeah, the problem is this is not a good year to be trying to find your quarterback, whether it's in the draft. I mean, if you get the first pick, are you sold on Cam Ward? Really? I mean, based on what? And the veteran market's going to be really not very enticing. Does Pittsburgh Russell Wilson? I mean, really, is that what you want? Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr, how about Aaron Rodgers? If the Jets, you want that here? So it's just Jameis Winston, all these names. Who again, we don't know who might be out there because teams got to, make their decisions before you make yours. But whoever it is, it's got to be somebody that when they sign him, they can look at the media and everyone else and say, and the fan base and say, this guy we're bringing in not to be an insurance policy like Flacco was, but this guy is going to compete and push Richardson for the number one spot legitimately. And that's why this is not the greatest off season to be looking for that, because it's not a lot of quarterbacks out there that you can think, yeah, I can see that. I wouldn't mind that. No, they're guys you're just kind of turning up. The Ryan Tannehills, who's been out for a year. So it's just not a good time. But, boy, they've got to find somebody. And I don't know who it's going to be because, again, we don't know who's going to be out there. But it's got to be somebody, a legitimate guy, that if Richardson doesn't make that leap during this offseason with his mechanics and with playing the position, if they turn, who knows? Maybe Gardner Minshew's available again, but that's the kind of guy we're talking about. So it's not a great time to be trying to either reload like teams at the top of the draft, Tennessee and all these teams, or finding a legitimate backup because you just don't know what you have with your young guy. It's just too bad. Situations have happened that you don't know going into year three what you have with this guy. And after 2 years, you should know. But with the injury, it really set them back a year on finding out what they've got with Richardson. And, if he's not the guy, then it's a total reset after 2025. And that's a couple more years before you really can get it right, if you get the right guy at that point.
So Mike Chappell on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Do you think at all they would have tried a hardcore reset had the draftable quarterback landscape been a little bit different? For example, been what people anticipate in 2026, not in 2025?
Well, the problem is that then you're sitting at number 14, and to get up to one or two to get where they were at number 4, with Richardson, boy, then and I realize I've talked to Joel Erickson, and he said, hey, if you're talking about moving up, then there's no price that's too high to get your guy, even if draft picks, future draft picks, and all that stuff. But it's so hard to move up from 14. If this was a draft,
I think that's going to be the problem you're going to have next year if the things go relatively the same. Yeah.
No question. You're going to be, hopefully for the team, Richardson is the guy and all this, and they've got a playoff and all this stuff. But if not, they're probably going to be 7-10, 6-11, and this league does not reward mediocrity. It just doesn't. I mean, go back to Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. These guys had to be the league's worst team record-wise to get that position. And then it takes the right time. The thing that I always point out is in 2011, the Colts, for whatever they were, 3-13, 2-14, and they get Andrew Luck. Well, then the next year, KC is 3-13, the number 1 pick, and they get a left tackle. That's where it's got to be. The timing's got to be right. So that's the hard part. If Richardson is not the guy, and you're still, middle of the pack record-wise and all that, man, it is just hard because you're not the only team needing a quarterback. There's going to be teams in front of you, and teams at the top of the draft that need it. So it's just there's so much riding on him being the right guy, because whether they push the reset button this year, which they didn't do, or next year if they have to, it is just so hard for things to fall into place for you to be in position to get that guy. And then you got to be right on the guy. And we've seen it's about a 50-50 coin flip on if that's the right guy. Does Carolina know if Bryce Young's the right guy? No. He sure better be. This is a very, very precarious situation to be in. That's why for the franchise, for the owner on down, Richardson really needs to be the guy, because plan B is not very enticing, and it involves a lot of moving parts, and it will involve 2 or 3 years of making it if you find the right guy after next season.
Mike, was Lou Anarumo, he plan A the entire time, even through all the conversations and interview processing? Was he number 1? Might we ever find out if they had interest in somebody else that maybe did not have a similar interest in them?
I don't. That's a good question, and I don't know. I'm not going to act like I do. This, from everything we were told, and I believe is this was Shane Steichen's hire. And I know some people are not really high on this hire, which I don't know what you base that on. You say, well, the Bengals fired him. Well, whoever you were going to hire was fired by somebody. That's why they were out there. So you just hope that this guy, a change was needed. I like Gus a ton, but the change was needed because it just wasn't working. But I always go back to Tom Moore, who wasn't the first guy to say it, but it's Jimmys and Joes. It's not X's and O's. It's players. It's a players' league, and for Anarumo to make it, to make an improvement, to make a difference here, they need to add, 3 players, 2 starters and a third, strong rotational guy, or 3 starters, a corner, a safety, an outside linebacker to go Zaire Franklin, and another pass rusher. And all these positions are tough to get. Pass rushers are really hard to get. We've seen that with what they've done here. Do they bring back Odiengbo this year? He's a free agent. He's 25 or 26, and boy, you just hate to give up on a guy who might be really, really good. Had 8 sacks 2 years ago, 3 sacks this year. So it's players. It's just players. And, as much as people ragged on Gus, and rightfully so in a lot of situations, look what he had in the secondary to work with. I mean, they were patching together corners, and the safety position was, not as effective as they wanted because Blackman had the injury most of the season. So I tend to defer to players. If you got players, it's funny how good your coordinators are. when you get really good players. And I do think coordinators can make a difference. They can mask things. But it just helps to have, talent. You don't have to have elite talent at every position. But, boy, you need to have solid players. Justin Houston type, Stephon Gilmore, the one year that Xavier Rhodes played well, those kind of guys. And hopefully free agency will give them that type of addition to the defense because as it stands right now, it's not good enough.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike, I appreciate that as always. Well, at least I won't, but others will have a double cheeseburger, no middle bun in honor of Robin Miller coming up tomorrow.
That's
Workingman's friend.
That's right. Enjoy it.
You got it, buddy.
We'll
Thanks, Mike.
Next week.
To Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. Dane Fife going to join us coming up on the other side. Big Ten basketball, including IU Purdue round number 1 coming up tomorrow night. Dane joins us next.
The Ride with JMV.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Thank you for joining us tomorrow. Workingman's Friend. It's legendary. Tavern Tour stop number 1 of 2025. Me, Brent Holverson, and we're going to get you set for IU Purdue at number 1 of 2 this season, Big Ten, up at Mack Arena in West Lafayette on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He may know just a little bit about this rivalry, a little bit about hoops, a little bit about the Big Ten. Dane Fife joins us now. Pfeiffer, how we doing?
I'm doing great, Johnny. I'm actually going to be driving past the Assembly Hall here shortly.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Where are we going around Bloomington today? Are we just cruising the IU campus?
We're just getting back into town and making a quick drive by, a little out of my way, but just a drive by Assembly Hall. I like to do that every now and then.
Good for you.
Go back, relive the glory days.
You missing coaching?
You know what? There's parts of it I miss, but a lot of it I don't, and especially with what's happening now as far as I'm not so concerned about NIL as I am the people, what it's doing to the adults. So it's bringing in some shysters, and it's honestly turning a lot of the good guys into shysters. It's just fake money most of the time.
Could you envision yourself getting back in ever, or are you just really comfortable where you are right now?
I am really comfortable where I am. I love what I'm doing, and more importantly, I love the people that I'm working with. And I had that opportunity at Michigan State too, where I had the chance to just work with really good people in a great environment with a great culture. And without sounding too sour, I didn't have a great experience when I came back to work for Indiana for a year. So with that said, that would be my biggest concern. And to be able to put my family through that again, that's just not something that's in the cards right now. And to be truthful, I really like where I'm at right now. Yes, I'm selling insurance. But you know what? I really enjoy it. And like I said, I enjoy the people that I'm working with, and I still get to talk with guys like you.
Yes. Well, we're always going to be able to talk, either on or off the air. And I know your daughter is a freshman at Bloomington South, getting some clock. You weren't at the game, at the Center Grove game. I was actually there for a minute. You were not there.
I left. I felt there was probably a game on. She's splitting JV and varsity as a freshman, and there was probably a game on, and I didn't expect her to get any tick that night for Center Grove. So get home, get some food, find some couch time, log some couch time, and catch some hoops.
Well, you're lucky, too. Larry Winters has coached up that program down there for thousands of years, so that's good.
Thousands. I tell you, Bloomington South girls, look out. They're really good. They've got 8 juniors. They're really good.
Yeah.
Johnny, they are really good.
Yeah, you did mention Dane Fife's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How much of a 180 was, and you brought up your time, getting back to Bloomington at IU, how much of a 180 was it compared to what you thought it was going to be when you first took that gig?
I'll tell you, it was a perfect 180. My impression was that being a pro coach, there was a learning curve, but I couldn't have anticipated, what went on and what was understood and what wasn't understood relative to being successful in college basketball. It's just different. And if you look at, by and large, I'll show you 20 NBA head coaches that have failed in college, and if you could just show me one that's having some relative success. And it's just really hard. It makes you wonder, what are they doing up there at the NBA level? What do they do? Do they spend time with their players? Do they nurture? Do they fight tooth and nail for a culture? I really question that. I really do question what they do at the NBA level, or how much impact they want to have or choose to have. I still think Izzo would be successful in the NBA because he's going to spend the time with the players. And It just does not happen with an NBA coach based on my experience.
So Dane Fife is with us. I just think that you mentioned the culture and the legacy in a lot of places, and I think you see that in the place you just drove by moments ago. That's all eliminated because of the way that you're dealt with, either from the coach or the staff or just the entire process of putting together a team that, besides maybe a couple there, really don't give a damn about, legacy, long-term, or what it means to be in that particular uniform. I think we see that oftentimes, and probably with the type of NBA coach getting back into it collegiately that don't get that either.
Well, I think an NBA coach's perspective is that this is about basketball. When you get to college, it's about 90% coaching basketball, and you and I both know that that's not even close. It's 10% coaching basketball, and it's 90% everything else. And it is a shock, and it's you're jamming a square peg to a round hole if you think anything else. You have to spend time with these players. You have to know what's going on off the court. You have to, you've got to work each player's circle because it's about improvement. And one thing that always stuck out to me with Izzo is, it was a be careful what you wish for situation where he'd ask a recruit and his family or a current player in his family, do you want to be an NBA player? And, of course, everybody would answer yes. And it was kind of a be careful what you wish for. You have to do everything in your power then. Izzo would do everything in his power to help that recruit achieve his goal, which means you're trying to teach that kid life skills. You're trying to teach that kid. You can teach that kid the necessary life skills, then it's going to be hard for him to fail. But most of these kids come in, they have no idea, and so it's much more about life skills than it is about coaching basketball X's and O's. And I think that's the failure at Indiana is there's just no respect for playing hard. There's no respect for discipline. There's no respect for doing the right things. And it's a struggle to watch.
I look at it this way, and I'm curious, your trained eye, much more than me thinking I shot great at the hyper.
Which you probably did.
I look at these guys, and they're not without talent, but they could not give a damn about one another, nor do they look like they've ever been taught to be able to play cohesively together. Am I seeing the right thing?
Well, I would say they're not being taught, because if you look at some of these guys that have transferred in, they've had success. We're looking at three of the top players in the Pac-12 that had success, with exception to one. And by success, I mean one of the best players on an NCAA tournament team, which would be, Ballo and Rice. And so then you get to, okay, well, what's the problem? And you kind of look at a common denominator of the usual problem that's taken place that's been here for 3 or 4 years now. There's a common denominator with some of these players that were successful at other places and coming here and struggling. And so I think that the discipline and the ability to play together, but I think it's just the understanding, the level of understanding that this is Indiana, this is how we act, this is what we do, and it's not getting done. And that was one of my big issues with that's Indiana's really struggled with is what I learned at Michigan State is you do a lot of talking through the former players. That means a Yogi Ferrell, or who's the guy that got in the fight that got forechecked last night by Isaiah Stewart?
Yeah, Thomas Bryant.
Thomas Bryant, Eric Gordon, I don't know, Dane Fife, guys that played here. Those are the guys that really kind of do the ingraining of the Indiana culture. And so how do you do that? Well, you know what you do. You foster an environment where former players it's demanded that they come back. that they engage with the current players. And that's my idea. I've seen it work at certain places, but certainly not being done at Indiana. At least by the current regime. It stinks.
How quickly did you realize that this wasn't going to work, this is how it was going to be, and this was not going to be for you?
Well, unfortunately, I knew it really on my second day there. I just felt like, gosh, this is I'm being asked to do something here that I have no idea that I can commit to this, because it's nothing bad, but it was a fork. I mean, I grew up under the Bob Knight, Tom Izzo type atmosphere, and it was just nothing of the sort. And like I said, that's not bad. It's just something that I'm not used to doing. And so I knew it, and I had to adapt. But really what I fell back on was what I'd been trained essentially all my life to do. And I'm just not sure that and clearly it wasn't taken as – it wasn't utilized to our advantage, and it wasn't accepted by the head coach and the man in charge. So it was the head coach's right to get rid of me, and I can disagree. I can be upset, but I choose not to.
Were you upset initially? If so, how long did it take you to get over that?
Well, that's a great question, and you know this, and I'll never forget that there's a couple people, there's several people that kind of stood by me and checked on me, and you were certainly one of them, and I appreciate that. You know what? It was. You just have to get over it was humbling, the humility component to it, and the ego part of it. You're getting fired kind of publicly, and most people could care less, but I just had to get over the fact that most people couldn't care less about it, and there were probably 50 people that might have really cared. Oh well, Dane Fife gets fired. Wow, but most people couldn't care less. But in the moment, you think, gosh, you're a failure. You're an embarrassment. And I just really felt, not to give a sob story, but my family, we made the commitment, and this happens to a lot of people, but we made the commitment to come to Bloomington and, to stay, and left a really good situation for a very tumultuous, unproven, very dire situation, and it was risky, but we're happy, we're good, and we're in Bloomington, and we're doing great.
I know how it is, obviously, from the head coaching angle and the staff. Do you still communicate with Scott Dolson at all?
On occasion, we text. Scott, I'm a huge fan of Scott, a huge proponent of Scott. I think Scott's all about the right things. I feel bad for Scott at times, because I really don't think Scott was ultimately responsible for the hire of the basketball coach. I also think that I think Scott takes some responsibility for what happened with me, and I don't think that's necessary. Scott gave me a really good opportunity. I came here under the guise that I would be the next head coach in 3 or 4 or 5 years, and it wasn't to be. And I kicked myself because I didn't do my homework. I didn't do what I needed to do to really vet the situation, and that's on me. And that's on me and on nobody else. And I don't put any fault towards the current coach, the current coach in Indiana. I don't fault that. That's on me.
So Dane Fife with us. So did Dolson ever say why he was unable to follow through with the reason why he hired you and brought you in the first place? All the reasons that you talked about, those reasons you did not vet. I don't think you and I have ever had this personal conversation, but why is he so, why couldn't he follow through on this, I guess, for lack of a better way to ask it? in all the things that he told you as to the reason why you made that change and you left for Bloomington?
Well, Scott never said that I'd be the next head coach. I didn't think that, and that's really not practical for that to happen. And what I tried to convey to the coach in Indiana was the fact that my future boss was the fact that, hey, look, I'm coming there to be your assistant. If we don't win, I have no chance to be the head coach. And it's not practical to put it in contract under those circumstances. In fact, I said, hey, look, there's no point putting it in the contract because that's not practical, especially coming in as a first-year head coach. It's impractical. So I'll take your word for it. But just know, more importantly, I'm coming in to be your assistant. And so that was the conversation between me and the head coach. And like I said, that it's on me, and I accept full responsibility, and I accept full responsibility to not doing the job to maintain my position at Indiana as an assistant basketball coach.
So Dane Fife is with us. Before I let you go, given the fact you have IU Purdue, #1, coming up tomorrow night, I'm assuming you will be watching that. Give me the analysis between the divide that there is right now between one program and the other.
Well, I tell you, look, I think there's watching Purdue the other night against our guy Dustin in the Michigan Wolverines. That is a level I've never seen. And so you've got the beatable Purdue, you've got good Purdue, and then what happened the other night was elite Purdue. That was another level. And what concerns me, if I'm Indiana, is are we going to get that type of Purdue? Because if that Purdue, the elite Purdue, shows up, Indiana's going to get run out the gym. Typically, I know the Indiana guys are going to be fired up. I know Trey Galloway, Anthony Leal, Renew. I know those guys will be fired up. But the question is can they maintain it for 40 minutes under really difficult circumstances, which Mackey Arena is going to be as loud as it's ever been, just because, I mean, the way Purdue played against Michigan was just absolutely incredible. And it was a juggernaut. I mean, you can have Zach Edey, you can have some of those great teams, the Glenn Robinson team. That Purdue team that played against Michigan the other night was really, really fun to watch. Just really fun to watch. But the gap between the two programs is monumental. And I think what Matt Painter has is his teams have an identity. He's got an idea of what he wants in his program, and he's sticking with it. I give him credit, though, too, is he makes a lot of adjustments. At Indiana, I feel like right now it's stuck in the mud. There's not many adjustments. There's just a reliant on spending the money to bring in what's considered elite talent and roll the balls out and play.
That money ever run out, Dane?
No, I don't think it'll run. I think it'll run out with the current regime, but I don't think it'll ever run. I think there'll still be excitement whenever there's some new blood brought in terms of coaching. I think there'll be plenty to be had because NIL's still new, and there's a lot of untapped resources still with Indiana and people that I know would be willing to front the money.
I'm going to tell you what. I know I'm talking to an insurance agent right now, but you don't sound like one. You sound like a coach. You sound like a coach, brother. You always will. And a tremendous dude. You know that. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
At least that's one person telling me that.
No, man. There are a lot of people out there that feel that way, too. And understand, let me tell you this. I've said this to you before. Understand the situation more than you believe they do. So.
Yeah.
Hey, we will stay in touch, though, okay? You join me anytime you want. I love the conversation, even if we're not talking about what we're talking about right now.
You bet, Johnny. Love to.
Hang in. Tell the fam hello.
Okay, I sure will. Thanks a lot.
It's Dane Fife on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. That is going to be worth a listen if you missed any of it right there. Quick break. Back with you next.
Ride with JMV.
Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, Simple Minds, Soft Cell, and Modern English coming up in June. Ruoff Music Center, number 9 at 239-1070 is going to go on us right now. Thank you, Live Nation, our friends, Kyle and everybody, too. Kyle and everybody with Live Nation. That we deal with that has allowed us to give away tickets no matter what musical genre we're talking about, because we know this, that you sports fans out there love music. Here's the other thing I know. You sports fans love real, compelling, genuine conversation, and that's what you just got from Dane Fife. Across the board. If you missed any of it, whether or not you're an IU fan does not matter. podcast, 1075thefan.com. Dane was spectacular just moments ago. And we'll do that again very soon. Dane Fife, Mike Chappell, Dustin Dopirak, podcast, 1075thefan.com. Tomorrow, the legendary Workingman's Friend. That's a Tavern Tour Stop, 2025, number 1 we're doing at the legendary Workingman's Friend. Me, Brent Holverson, and a busy show coming up for you tomorrow. I cannot wait to see you. Get there early. Remember, bring cash only at Workingman's Friend tomorrow. Tavern Tour Stop to start 2025. The legendary Workingman's Friend. Again, my thanks to Mike Chappell, Dustin Dopirak, and Dane Fife. IU fans or otherwise, check out what Dane had to say. And Rick Venturi's got something for you tomorrow as well. I shall explain tomorrow at Workingman's Friend beginning at 3. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.